Hi everybody, Steve Scott here with another Q&A question and answer video. This time the question is, when was judo admitted into the Olympic Games? Well, we'll get to that, but to start, let's talk about a timeline of things that occurred to make it happen to get into the Olympic Games. So we got to start with the very source himself, Professor Jigoro Kano, the founder of judo. Now, Professor Kano wasn't just the founder of judo. He's considered in Japan to be the father of modern-day physical education and certainly sport. So he was a very influential figure in Japanese physical education and culture in general. So in 1912, he attended the Stockholm Olympics as the representative for the country of Japan. And he also carried, by the way, at the opening ceremonies, he carried the Japanese flag in the opening ceremonies of the Stockholm Olympics in 1912. He took two athletes with him from Japan, but they weren't judo athletes. Judo was not an Olympic sport at that time. And they were actually, I think, track and field athletes. So Japan did have a presence starting in 1912 in the Olympics. And that's significant because that's when Professor Kano started talking about judo and getting a couple of things he was trying to achieve was have Tokyo, or at least Japan certainly, host one or more Olympic Games in the future, and to get judo involved in the Olympic Games. So those were his goals, and eventually he kept working at it. He attended all the Olympic Committee meetings and all the Olympics through the years, and in 1938 he negotiated with the Olympics. He convinced the Olympic Committee, he and other people, but he was the guy leading the charge there to get judo admitted in the Olympics. But even more important at that time was to get Japan to host the Olympic Games. And so in 1938, the International Olympic Committee agreed to have Tokyo host the Summer Olympic Games for 1940, and for the Winter Olympic Games, Sapporo, Japan, in 1940 was to host the Winter Games, or 40, or whenever the Olympic Games happened after that, or the Winter Games for Olympics after that. I'm not quite sure if it was 1940. But in any event, Tokyo was selected to be the location for the 1940 Olympic Games. But what happened in 1938 was pivotal in its history of judo and also the history of Olympic judo, because that meeting that Kano convinced the IOC to do that took place in March, early in the year, March of 1938. Later in the year, in May of 1938, Professor Kano died on the trip on the way home on a ship. He died of pneumonia. He was the age of, I believe, 78, 79 years of age. So it's pivotal in the world of judo as well, because that's the date of Kano's death, and he left a major void. But one of the things that happened after that, between 1938 and, of course, 1940, the outbreak of World War II, the Great Pacific War. So the world was in turmoil. The 1940 games were canceled. The 1944 Olympic Games were also canceled. And it wasn't until 1948 that the Olympic Committee, or the Olympic Games, started to be held again, and that was in London. But by that time, the interest in having judo as an Olympic sport waned. It just pretty much died. It was revitalized later by other leaders in judo, and things had to happen to make judo become an Olympic sport. One of those things that did happen was in 1951, the International Judo Federation was formed. That was the first step in gaining Olympic recognition. As that developed and judo became more of a worldwide sport and activity, in 1962, the IJF, as part of their requirements to become an Olympic sport, started having weight classes for judo internationally, and I think there were 4 weight classes, if not mistaken. Again, we're talking, in those days, it was only for men's judo. Women's judo as a sport had not developed yet. So this was all for men's sport of judo. Women come later. You'll hear about that a little bit momentarily here. But anyway, in 1964, between 1962 and 64, I don't know exactly when it happened, but the International Olympic Committee agreed to allow judo to be a demonstration sport in the Tokyo Olympics, because Tokyo had won the slot to win the Olympic Games for 1964, and I think each country in those days was allowed to have 2 or 3 demonstration sports of their choosing, and judo was Japan's choice was for a demonstration sport. At that time, It was men's judo. So men's judo was admitted as an Olympic sport, as a demonstration sport in 1964. At that time, I think there were 27 nations represented at the Olympic Games. So that was in 1964. Okay. Advanced time. In 1968, judo was not yet fully accepted as an Olympic sport, so it was not included in the Mexico City Olympics. And in 1972, in the Munich Olympic Games, judo was then given full recognition for men as an Olympic sport. And it's been a men's sport ever since 1972. But let's not negate or let's not diminish the significance of the 64 Olympic Games for men in this particular case, because it was anyone who won a medal, gold, silver, bronze, in Tokyo, even though it was considered a demonstration sport, it was still an Olympic sport. Judo athletes were still at the Olympic Games, and anyone winning a medal is considered to have won an official gold medal, silver medal, bronze medal at the Olympic Games in 1964 for men. And later for women, the same situation takes place. You'll hear about it just really quickly here. So we know men's judo is an Olympic sport now. In 1988, in the Seoul Olympic Games, women were admitted as a demonstration sport for the Seoul Olympic Games in the Olympic to compete. And it was really that 1988 Olympic Games for women was probably, going back, and I certainly remember those years personally, was probably one of the toughest international tournaments ever held up to that time in Seoul, Korea, in the 1988 Olympics for women. It was just a brutally tough tournament. The very best women of the world were selected to be there, and it was just a great tournament. So even though it was a demonstration sport, considered a quote-unquote demonstration sport, any woman who won a gold, silver medal at the Olympic Games in Seoul certainly is an Olympic medalist. I mean, fully recognized, so without doubt. Then later in Barcelona in 1992, women were fully admitted. Women's judo was fully admitted as an Olympic sport. So that's a bit of the history of how the judo has evolved into an Olympic sport, developed into an Olympic sport to what it is now. So judo, I think, is practiced in about 190 different countries worldwide, and it is a major sport. So anyway, that's a bit of the history of judo in the Olympic Games. So I hope you enjoyed that.